All right. Got the BuffEmUpdates. We're live now. I'm Chico, BiggDogg Chico. I got my man Adam with me. And to start us off, we wanted to do this weekly and get together and discuss the updates, the news, the trending things that goes on with Colorado Buffaloes football. And this week we have some topics to discuss, and we'll just throw them out there. But we're going to start off first and introduce ourselves to both of our audiences because we are broadcasting live on my page. You can find us on YouTube, BiggDogg Chico, on YouTube, also on Adam's page and Buff Stampede. So, Adam, go ahead and let everybody know who you are, what you do, and where you're checking in from.
Well, first, I'm excited about this collaboration because you've had a lot of good YouTube content out there, and we got a chance to meet briefly this past year, but we haven't had a chance to collaborate like this to this point. And your Prime Parents series is one of my favorite things when I have some time to tune into that. Just the other day, I was watching the interview you did with Khalil Benson's mother, and I mean, it's really good content, and it really gives folks out there even more reason to root for these young men, right? When you know about their backstories. And so it's just a really cool idea and something that I was a fan of. And so now being able to talk about different topics on a regular basis, that's going to be pretty fun. I work for BuffStampede.com on the 24/7 Sports Network, which is owned by CBS Sports. And I've been covering the Buffs for quite a while. I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to cover Colorado for Rivals.com coming out of college in July of 2003. So it's been a long time, and there's been some rough seasons in there, and it wasn't for lack of ambition. I just really grew an attachment to Colorado, and I always knew that at some point somebody would see Colorado for more than just being a middle of the level or at some years really struggling as a program, but saw it as a program that could attract top level players. And Coach Prime coming to Boulder is really rejuvenalized not only the program but those that covered the Buffs, because it was tough in 2022. They ranked dead last out of 131 FBS programs in scoring margin. As much as you got to stay unbiased at times in this gig, it still wears on you. And so it's been a fun ride here the last 14 months, and really looking forward to the future. I'm sick of, as much as I love my family and friends, I'm sick of being home around the holidays. So hopefully this is the last holiday season with Coach Prime at the helm at CU, where we don't have a bowl game to be talking about into getting out into cover. And Chico, I'm curious to hear your backstory and kind of your past and what got you following along with Coach Prime and what he does at Jackson State and now Colorado.
Well, I appreciate that, Adam. I'm one of those guys, I guess, Coach Prime brought along with him indirectly, unofficially to Colorado, I would like to say. But I started covering Coach Prime before or right along when he got to Jackson State, with the intrigue, of course, of Shedeur Sanders. I was watching what Shilo was doing at USC, South Carolina, but I wasn't really covering it online for YouTube or anything of that nature. I was just really a fan from that point. But I have a past in YouTube doing music videos, actually, and also just documenting my family life and my coaching back when I was doing youth football coaching, and then got into coaching at a small college in my hometown. And but before that, I actually played football from Selma, Alabama. So I'm from what I like to call the heart of the South, right in the middle of the South. So I'm from Selma. We played football forever. I had offers to go all type of places. I ended up going to University of Alabama, Birmingham. Played ball there. Lettered there. Did my thing there at tight end. Ended up playing arena football and overseas in Austria, which I loved, and I got a worldly experience doing that. After that, I was with all the experiences there, I came back home and did some entrepreneurship type things and working for myself and coaching and mentoring kids, and doing the music videos, like I said, working with different businesses to amplify their client base. And so I was doing that a lot, and I was working a job here in Hawaii that I was able to come out here and live here, based from football and playing in Hawaii Bowl with UAB. And so I decided, I was like, man, I left everything back home to come here. Do I want to just work a regular job, or do I want to get back into this YouTube thing? Because I was, monetized and profitable, doing the marketing music thing. But that got scratched once I came out here and working a regular job. And when Coach Prime decided to start back coaching, I said, this could be big. This is a guy who I followed forever anyway. When I was a little kid playing baseball, a lot of people don't know, but if you know, they called me, or I had them call me, however you want to put it. They called me prime time. I was prime time. when I excuse me, when I learned to drive, when I had my first car, my number was 8, so I had PT8 on the front of my car, prime time 8. So I was that guy, right? And so when he decided to get into coaching, I said, man, this is going to be a huge story. This is something I can cover. And I know in YouTube, you have to find something you're passionate about, something you're not going to get burned out about. I said, this is something I'll watch each and every day, so I might as well report on it. And I hate working this job that I'm at, but this is something I feel like I can do. So long story short, I started doing it, dedicating myself to it every day. The pandemic came around also. Everybody was sitting down, so I really had to, hone in on something, a niche, and that what it became to be, a niche. And I focused on that. Got some recognition from Coach Prime somehow. I know I'm being long-winded. Got some recognition from Coach Prime. Somehow it came across his desk, and that kind of gave me that battery in the back. Okay, if he likes it, or if he, can even just understand it and digest it, I'm not speaking a foreign language. I can do what I do. I have uh, I wouldn't say a journalistic background, but English and things of that nature was my favorite subject in school, writing and speaking. So um, it was something I said, I could do this. So why not take advantage of the time and the opportunity that we have now with the pandemic and YouTube and the platform to do it and the topic to do it. Let's go in full force, and that's what I did. Travis came out here for the Polynesian Bowl. I covered that and off and running then. So I've been going ever since then, and I hope to continue to do what I'm doing, because this is something I went to school as a communications major at UAB. So this is something that I felt like I will be doing in some capacity, and now here I am. Now I'm talking to you, and I was pleasured and able to meet yourself and a bunch of other journalists that was there for the Nebraska game in that room. And I'm curious to know, to bring this back around to you, has that room ever been filled that much? Because this was a small room, and it was tight in there and hot. Have you ever seen it like that before?
Yeah, it didn't smell great in there, that's for sure. No, that I'm trying to think. There were a number of occasions. The TCU post game was pretty cramped in there as well. It's night and day. I mean, there would have been more people, obviously, post game than you'd get for a weekly press conference. But I would venture to guess 3 times as many people, and there's probably a lot more people that want to get in there, but there's a certain point where nobody else can fit into that room. And so, no, it was a unique experience, just kind of, but it's also great in getting a chance to meet you in Calling with Life and football. And it's kind of the Colorado media family has grown bigger too, which is great, because we do such a good job of collaborating with each other. And so it's been really fun. I have done the other side of things where you're covering a struggling team and there's only a couple of you in the post-game press conference. I would much rather have to kind of fight for a spot to stand and to have their riveting football that we're covering. And I want to throw it back to you. I want to go back to the UAB playing days. I want to know what type of football player you were.
What type of football player I was? You want me to tell it, or you want me to?
Yeah, I want to hear it from you.
Well, from me, type of football player I was. The simple question. I felt like I was I was a football player in the true essence of it. I was a guy that should have been staying on the field like a Travis Hunter. You might, Travis Hunter, come on. No, not that uber type athlete, but I played tight end and defensive end. I was recruited coming out of high school by every SEC school to play outside linebacker or defensive end, or what you would call now like the buck position, like where we have Jordan Dominic playing. That's what I mainly got recruited as and offered by Georgia, Auburn, Tennessee. I told Alabama no because they were on probation at the time, and I didn't like the coach. I think it was Franchoni or something. I didn't like the coach, but I came up as an Alabama fan, listening to them on the radio. So I wanted to stay in state, and my recruiter George Pugh, who played at Alabama and who also coached in my hometown, he was able to wrangle up a great, I felt like a recruiting class at that time that included myself, Roddy White, Daryl Hackney, and a few others. And we ended up going to the first bowl game out here in Hawaii. So I ended up as the leading all-time leading receiver at tight end at the position at the time. But then a guy from my hometown, Jeffrey Anderson, came out. He got more stats than me. But if you ask people about, they'll say, hey, he was a good tight end, a nice Shannon Sharp type receiving tight end, great hands, can run routes, and a willing blocker also. I was a guy that played H-back, tight end, and slot receiver in my career, just on the offensive side of the ball. So that kind of could tell you some of my versatility. I was lead blocking on a guy like Thomas Howard at UTEP back in the day, who played with the Raiders, but I was also catching passes and crossing routes on Omar Gaither, who played with the Eagles, and Jason Allen, who played in the league also. So I played against some great guys, and but I did my thing, yeah. But you can get lost in the shuffle to go to the league, and that's why I went back and started coaching and helping out guys to let them know that, hey, you have to have an agent, you got to have your business in place, or else the opportunity can come, and then it can go just like that. Real quick story: I had on draft day, I decided not to go with an agent based off the bad advice I got, and I was sitting there fielding draft calls alone by myself on draft day. So I got offered to come to camp by the Philadelphia Eagles, Tennessee Titans, and New York Giants. But that all fell by the wayside because I didn't have the capabilities to receive a fax number, to receive the contract and sign the contract and send it right back. So if anybody ever went through that or know about that, they know the process of being a free agent on draft day. So that's my story.
The last part there is obviously a bummer, but it was really cool hearing about kind of your background in playing football. We had very different paths to get to where we are right now. Growing up, my best friend ended up being the all-time leading scorer in McAllister basketball history. And so I knew pretty early that the writing was on the wall when I couldn't beat him one-on-one ever.
Yeah.
That I better figure out a different path if my love for sports is going to come out. So I think that's a blessing in disguise. It got me to realize pretty early on that it wasn't going to be me making the plays, but rather covering it.
Exactly. Yep. That kind of happened to me in basketball. I was a 6'1.5" center because our center quit on us, and I thought I was pretty good. We knocked off the number one team in the state, and then we went on to the next round, and they had 6'7", 6'7", 6'10", 6 foot. And I tried to get a rebound. All I saw was arms. I was like, oh, okay. Well, this is the end of the road for me in basketball. So the writing is usually on the wall and lets us know at some point. So man, good to know. And where is that you're from again?
So I was born in Minneapolis, moved to Phoenix, where I went to Arizona State, and kind of sharing our story. The first player that I ever interviewed as a student at Arizona State was Dustin Pedroia. So just kind of a really cool first guy to ever interview. I was so nervous. I probably didn't make a whole lot of sense as I was trying to get my questions out. But and then moved out here basically a month after graduating college, and the rest has been history. And it doesn't feel like it's been 20, 21 years or whatever it's been. It despite some of those rough seasons, it's been a blast.
Yeah, definitely. I know nowadays though, and since Coach Prime has come there, since just the news of Coach Prime coming out, I know things have been shaken up and changed all the way which a way around in Boulder. Tell me about that experience. I guess we could start there and move forward. Just about Coach Prime coming there and how things went from normal to him coming to having the season he had last year, and now the expectations coming up now. Like he said, went from hope, and he gave you guys that, gave all of us that, to now expectations.
Well, I'll say this: before Coach Prime came to Boulder, you could go to a local grocery store in the Denver Boulder area, and you might see a CU shirts, maybe two, if you're going to spend about half an hour, 45 minutes in there. Now you can't go down an aisle without seeing CU apparel. People are just, he really has brought an enthusiasm back to Colorado football. And it's not that it was completely lost. Even back in 2022, they only won one game against Cal at Folsom Field. And there was a really good crowd that day, and folks rushed the field. They just were starved to be able to have that pride and to be that excited about what's being built. And obviously, there were some rough moments as the season progressed after that Stanford game, but because Coach Prime so quickly got back in the portal and reloaded this whole roster, and there's very few holes in this roster when you really dissect it. And so that is then again kind of shifted maybe some of the disappointment over 4-8 right back to being super pumped up about what they can accomplish in 2024. And you really got to take a second to smell the roses this year, because Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter have 1 year left in Boulder. And so hopefully folks are going to do that. They're really going to appreciate this run. But the level of excitement's unlike anything I've ever seen. There was a nice stretch back in 2016 when they won the Pac-12 South title. And then there's the glory days, obviously, that, with Bill McCartney, and they had some success under Gary Barnett early in his tenure. But it didn't really draw national headlines the way that it is right now, where you turn on ESPN and they're talking about Colorado football. We just haven't had that before.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. I was lucky enough to come, and I think I picked this one because of it being Coach Prime's first home game, and then just so happened that all these, I think it was Fox showed up for the first Nebraska game. Was it Fox and ESPN? Or I think it was just Fox. I saw Mark Ingram, Matt Leinart, all these people floating around. I ran into T.O., just so many people. I met my one of my idols on the football field, Michael Irvin. Shouts out to him. Shannon Sharp, who I mentioned earlier, Stephen A. Smith. All of these people are now in Boulder, Colorado, and I think everybody's planning to come back again this year. Like, it's the place to be. How could you even have seen that coming? Imagine that. How has that been for yourself?
Well, yeah, you definitely picked a great first game to attend. And I will say, though, Stephen A., he's going to start talking down on Boulder. He's trying to get Coach Prime out of Colorado. He's being honest, and I'm just having fun with this. But yeah, so we got to get him back out to Boulder more times so that he starts to warm up a little bit more towards it. But no, that was a pretty special Saturday. And part of and I talked about Colorado fans being starved, and a lot of that was being starved for something they could be proud in and really enjoy watching. But I think there was also this feeling of rivalry coming back into the picture, because when Colorado left the Big 12 to go to the Pac-12, they left Nebraska, and Nebraska went to the Big 10, obviously, and Missouri goes to the SEC. And so some of these rivalries, and they had kind of a history with Oklahoma and Texas as well. Those rivalries were gone, and you were trying to manufacture new rivalries in the Pac-12, and they tried to make Utah Colorado's rival, and it just never really developed into anything. And so being able to have some of these non-conference games against Nebraska now brings up some of those old feelings of animosity towards them, which in college football is good. It makes it fun. And so I'm glad you got a chance to kind of experience that. And there were still quite a few Nebraska fans there, but less than there had been in the past. Colorado fans really, really showed out and made it a really fun atmosphere that day.
Yeah, people were telling me, because I mentioned how that whole section over there was red. What is that, 1-on-1? Maybe it was just red over there. And then someone said, usually, this whole extra section would be red too. They would have that whole side over there. So yeah, it was great to see how everybody came out. I saw content creators, like I said, shout out to Destroying, who's out here in Hawaii now doing something, and just so many people I saw there. So great experience for me. And like I said, I shook you guys. I was able to meet yourself. Shout out to Brian Howell and everybody else who was in the building. I was able to shake you guys' hand, just introduce myself. Who knew that we were actually be doing this now and be discussing some of these topics? So what we wanted to do was come together and go through some of the week's happenings and such, and just kind of break them down for everybody, can kind of get a summary of what happened this week. And then if you miss out of anything, we can cover it, then do the same thing weekly and just break it down for everybody. So I guess we can start on number one, right?
Let's do it.
All right. The first one I have up here would be thoughts on the new Buffs offensive line. You can go ahead and start it off. What are your thoughts on the new Buffs offensive line with the additions that we have now made?
Well, I think it's natural to compare the incoming group on the offensive line compared to the incoming group that they had coming in on the offensive line last year, in the group that just really never was able to get it together to protect Shedeur Sanders, and ended up being one of the main issues on that football team last season, if not the number one issue. They brought in a lot of guys from the junior college ranks, in some more project type guys, or guys that came in from a Missouri State, and you can find really good players at those programs. But when you're banking on junior college guys coming in, there's going to be a learning curve there. And so conversely, when you look at it this year, these are guys that started at other FBS programs. And you've got guys like a Khalil Benson that has a lot of experience at different positions, playing in the Big Ten. You've got Tyler Johnson coming over from Houston. And I think Justin Mayers might be one of the more underrated guys just in terms of our transfer ratings on 24/7 Sports. I think the fact that he just was kind of under the radar there at UTEP and is going to be a really good player, has a lot of experience. And so there's not going to be as big a learning curve with these guys coming into Colorado. And you see, I think it was on Well Off Media, where Khalil Benson is really challenging guys in his group already. And I can't imagine there are more than 2 or 3 workouts in at this point. And so the mentality that group has had, and we've heard Coach Prime share that story of how they were out just, getting to know each other during their official visit. And somebody said something rude to Shedeur, and those guys, no hesitation, had his back. And so I think just the overall group, and you're not going to bat 1,000 with all the transfers you bring in. You're just, for some reason, going to misevaluate here and there. But that group coming in with the experience that it has seems like it's got a lot of potential. Whereas last year, you're talking a lot about a lot of guys that didn't have experience starting at the FBS level, and you were maybe questioning a little bit about what that jump was going to be, and it didn't work out. I'm pretty sure that it's going to work out with this group. I don't know what the expectations should be. Should that be, top half of the Pac-12 in terms of offensive line production? I think you take that even if it's 5th or 6th in the conference, because of where the kind of the bar was set coming out of last year, unfortunately.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You would definitely take that coming out. But I think just on my evaluation of them, what I think about these guys, you hit it right on the head. Coach Prime has brought in now starters on the FBS level, and playing guys who have NFL grades, should I say, who should be possible draft picks or at least get a chance to play in the NFL. And most of them have 3rd round to the 5th round evaluation on the Mayors. Big Johnson, I like him a lot too at their guard position, coming from Houston. Also Big Khalil Benson from Indiana, Mississippi native. I like all of those guys. They have the size and look like the grit and determination. Shout out to Yakiri Walker, also the center. I like what he said on Well Off Media, which is exactly in line with what I was thinking about him and what I saw on his film, which is his speed. That's his attribute. That's his best attribute is his speed, his quickness to make those blocks and get to the next level. A lot of people kind of underestimate that, but if you look in the NFL, you'll see centers like that, including Kelsey, who's the center for the Eagles, who I think might be retiring, but he's not a huge type center. He's a guy that came into the league based off of his quickness, and I think that's what Walker is. But he's going to have to compete at that center position with Tyler Brown, who had a whole year to get monstrous, who was already considered the strongest guy on the team. So if he was being Tyler Brown in the offseason or during this season while redshirting, quote so to speak, while sitting out, I feel like he has gotten super stronger, way a lot stronger. I've been in the film room a lot and gotten a grasp of Shermer's playbook, hopefully, so he can be a leader on that line at center. Like I said, Benson, Mayers, and Johnson, all former starters. The key, I think, will be that left tackle position. Will that be Seaton? Will that be Connor coming back off of an injury, but moving from the right guard spot to the left tackle spot, which he has experience at coming from Florida? So all in all, you have a lot of competition on that line. You can't forget about Savion Washington, who played well the first half of the season, but had an injury the second half. So, I wouldn't judge him off of that so much of the first half when he was healthy. And we have some depth there now. If we're looking to add one or two more guys, I can see that happening with so much movement in the transfer portal right now. I still think Coach Prime has some scholarships left in his back pocket. And I think there's still a lot of interest in Colorado coming from these players from the other schools. So we'll see when them pads come on, though, what the real deal is in the spring.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up guys like Tyler Brown and Savion Washington, because I think you kind of forget that Savion Washington, before that ankle injury last year, was playing pretty darn good football, and Tyler Brown was a guy you projected to be a starter a year ago. Even Hank Solinskas is somebody that comes in kind of as an unheralded 3-star guy that was initially committed to Carl Durrell's staff, and he played quite a bit of reps as a true freshman, and so that signals that he's a guy that they're high on for his future development. But yeah, I think a lot of eyes are going to be on Jordan Seaton this spring just to see can he be that guy from day one. And that's a lot to ask. And it seems like if anybody can handle that task because of how big and just really been impressed with his maturity and some of the things that we've seen him say when he was out at the Under Armour Next All-American game. And I think you're going to have a pretty good idea if you're this staff through 15 spring practices. Okay, how close is Jordan Seaton to being ready? And even if he is, you can't have too much depth on the offensive line, especially coming off last year, because you do want to have probably got 10 guys that you could feel comfortable starting if you had to. Whereas last year they didn't even have 5, and so you can't have too many of those big guys join the mix.
Definitely can. And so yeah, I'm excited about seeing them. And you mentioned Jordan Seaton. I guess I go back one more time on it. I did say something about David Connor coming off that injury. He has a lot of talent, so I think that kind of eases the pressure. If you're looking at it from a coaching staff point of view, that eases the pressure of wanting to have and making sure Seaton is ready to go and being that guy from day one. I think you can say we have a guy who's still young also, who should be a year in advance, even though he had that pec injury. I still think he should be a little bit more advanced than Jordan Seaton. If he's been putting in that work to recover and he knows what to do, I think he can be that guy to where you'll say, okay, if the competition is very close, you'll say, I'm going to go with the older guy, and it's going to be his spot to lose going into the spring and into the season. But we'll see what happens. And a lot of it depends on what happens when those pads come on, and can they defend? Can they block those defenders coming off the end? And we got some coming too, but we don't know who will be their coordinator on the defensive side of the ball. But I guess we can talk about it. Who would be your top 3 defensive coordinator options. I don't know if you might have a list already, but just off the top right now, who would be your top three if you could think about it? Defensive coordinator options for Coach Prime in Colorado.
Yeah, and just to close out on David Connor, I think he and Jordan Seaton would be guys you'd mention as candidates to be first off the bus type guys. And it's crazy because one of them is an early enrollee and the other is an underclassman. So size is definitely no issue with either of them. In terms of the open defensive coordinator position, I don't know about you. It kind of feels almost like trying to decipher a riddle a little bit because we saw my colleague, Coach Carl Reed, come out and say that, kind of alluding to the fact that this was going to be a coach that has NFL ties. But then the names being thrown out there, Mike Zimmer, Lovie Smith, it feels like those could be hires that could be made already, right? And then Coach Prime says in the team meeting and mentioned the fact that there are teams in the NFL still alive in the playoffs. And so they're going to take their time with the process. So I'm speculating just like everybody else. I don't imagine there's a whole lot of people that are in the inner circle in terms of knowing who he's going to hire there. I do like that approach when you're portal recruiting heavy, because a lot of guys in the portal want to kind of get coached up by guys that have that NFL experience. Whereas if you're generally building your program up with high school recruits, you probably want guys with more of kind of a background in college, if that makes sense. So it would make a lot of sense, I think, for guys wanting to transfer into play for somebody that has that NFL pedigree. And even Jim Leonard was thrown out there, and I don't think there were any legs to that. I mean, that would be a great hire based on what he did at Wisconsin. It's tough to speculate because I'm not a huge NFL guy, so I haven't gone down the list of teams that are still alive in the playoffs and broken down their defensive coordinators. Is that something you've looked at all, Chico?
Well, you hit it on the head. I didn't do that as of yet, as far as a deep dive into it. I just figured, like, I've seen the names go out there, and I know from what I know about Coach Prime, right, and interviewing him, talking to him, I know he's a guy about relationships. So that's what I've been looking more at, about the relationships and guys that he might have a relationship with somehow, some way. I don't think he'll just hire somebody because of the name, especially at this point after, kind of doing that. I wouldn't say doing that last year, but with the turnover of the coaching staff this year, I don't think that's ideal for him. He want to bring in guys that's would want to stay there. Even though it's about elevation, he want to bring in guys that will want to stay there, and that starts with a good relationship and knowing each other and mannerisms, and So I would look at guys like Ken Norton Jr., but he's not in the NFL, so why would you be waiting on him? Yeah. So, but you have a relationship with him, and I think he's primed and ready to be a DC, and he'll know how to come in and fit in right along with Coach Prime. Another option I was looking at and I read about was people were saying these are big names: Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, or even Warren Sapp being a defensive coordinator. Now, from what I know personally, being a defensive coordinator, man, you're going to have to be very, very just attention to detail, very meticulous, very, on top of things. And if you're a first-year coach, it's kind of hard for me to see you coming in, even if you have all the experience in the world like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. It'll be hard for me to see you coming in and I could be wrong, and being a defensive coordinator off the top. Not because you can't, but just because of anything you do, you want to kind of get a run at it and go at it first, and then see, and then maybe elevate. So I don't think it'll be those guys. I think it'll be a more experienced guy like a Ken Norton Jr. who has a relationship with. And it's one other guy. I didn't write it down, but it's slipping my mind. Who's my other defensive coordinator? Oh, he just got signed with the Raiders. Antonio Pierce. That was my other guy, but he's out of there. So who knows where Coach Prime is going? It's kind of like a guessing game now, and like you said, solving a riddle. But you mentioned Zimmer. I don't think he wants to bring in one of those older guys. I think he wants to bring in somebody who has that fire, that juice, who can hype the guys up and continue to and be meticulous, but also have that fire and energy to hype them up. Uh, having said that, my dark horse would be an old guy, and that's Rex Ryan. That's me.
Well, I will say I think that whoever gets hired, you hope there's some similarities based on what Charles Kelly was coaching, and it's not going to be verbatim. I don't think all the terminology is going to be the same when you hire a new DC, but you sometimes see a jump in a defense when they go from year one to year two under a new coach and staff. And so you hope they don't have to really start from square one, going into spring ball. Just you'd like to see those guys flying around, because when, it was not a defense that looks great on paper, but there were a lot of games where they, even though they were giving up some big chunk plays, they were still flying around to the ball. They were still creating takeaways. And there was an aggressiveness that I liked with that defensive group that Charles Kelly put out there. It certainly didn't back it up in terms of the final scores, but I kind of felt better about that group maybe down the stretch last season, as you saw. So you want to see, I would think, some continuity on that side of the ball.
What I would really love to see on the defense side of the football is just run defense. In any defense, if you can't stop the run, man, you're going to have problems. I think we have the talent in the defensive backfield to cause turnovers and to make plays and to be there. But up front, if we can cause some pressure, that's going to allow those defensive backs to be better. You're going to have some more errant throws now. You're going to have you're going to probably have to cover for shorter times now, because the quarterback has to get rid of the ball. So I think that front seven, those guys are going to be crucial to the success of the defense. And that's why I don't have it up here, but I guess I'll keep this overly up here. Talking about the defensive front, if that's really when the cliche comes into play, where people say is, you never have enough. You never have enough defensive linemen to rotate, in my opinion. So just looking at that front, how do you feel about the front coming in? I will say this: last year, and I said it on live, I feel like we were thin up front, and I think it was proven throughout the season. I felt like we were thin in depth and in size wise. We didn't have that 320 guy who can just plug up the middle. You put in on goal line. It's a run coming, so you put him in. He's going to clog up something and free up your linebackers. How do you feel about the guys we brought in? Shout out to Big Anquan Barnes, Chidozie Nwankwo up the middle. You have also Lola, who's outside, but mainly the guys up the middle. Mari McNeil returning. Is Bishop there also? That's a question. And just let me know your thoughts about the defensive line.
Well, yeah, before starting with the new guys, it's so key to have Shane Cokes back and Amari McNeil. And Cokes didn't put up big stats last year, but he was doing his job. And a lot of times that's going to result in linebackers and other players getting the stats. And I thought he was maybe a little underrated because people were expecting sacks from him, and that's probably not really going to be his game at Colorado the way he's asked to play. But Amari McNeil was maybe the most improved guy from the start of last season to the end, or at least on a very short list of guys that had really made a big jump. So you don't have to completely reload that group, and you just kind of add to it. And Chidozie Nwankwo, I mean, what he did at Houston, he's going to be battling for a starting job right away. And Quincy Wiggins was the number one ranked player coming out of the state of Louisiana, and it sounded like he was going to start to kind of take that jump. You mentioned Samuel Okunlola. He was starting to make that jump at Pitts. So you have guys coming in that were the fan bases of those schools that they left were pretty bummed to see them, because they saw that these were a couple guys that were on the precipice of really jumping into a big role. Wiggins is just a physical specimen, and is another guy that brings some versatility in there with his length. And so there's a lot in it. Kind of goes back to the O-line and probably most positions as we analyze things now. There's just so many more guys that you could point to and go, I could see him starting for reasons X, Y, and Z. And it felt like last year there were guys that you thought were starting caliber, but it wasn't anywhere near as deep as it is right now. And so to your point, yeah, and there's not a position on a football team that rotates more than those guys. So you got to have depth on the defensive line. And you bring in Brandon Davis-Swain and Eric Brantley Jr. as early enrollees, and it's hard to throw too much on a true freshman, and they're not super long guys, but their production in high school was off the charts, both those guys.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't shock me if they kind of threaten to get in the rotation as well. And we still haven't even mentioned everybody in that group, Chaz Wallace, JJ Hawkins. You mentioned Bishop Tom. So it's just so many guys to talk about. Whereas a year ago, it was, well, here's a handful of guys. And we couldn't say with definitive statements at this point who would start, but you kind of had a feeling there's a lot of spots on this team. I have no idea. I don't have no idea who this team's leading receiver is going to be. There's going to be a lot of competition at a lot of spots.
Yes, and I like to see that. And Quinn Barnes and Wiggins, as you mentioned, are two guys you can have walk off the bus first also, big time, good looking guys coming from the SEC. I would like to see, honestly, just from my experience, once again, I still would like to see. I don't think we're done as far as recruiting and bringing in other guys, but I would like to see, as far as the defensive line go, just maybe two more guys that look like Barnes or bigger, because I'm a big run stuffer, run defending type guy. You have to do that unless you're just going to get gashed away, and that's just my thoughts about it. I think we can add a couple of more guys on that. You think there's two more guys out there we could bring in? Is that a possibility?
Well, yeah, I think everybody kind of wants to know the set roster at this point. We have to keep remembering that there is going to be this spring transfer window as well. And I don't think it was official that there was speculation that they were going to allow multiple transfers with the exception. But I don't think that was official. Was it by the time the winter portal period ended for most schools? And so you might have some guys that they didn't want to risk it. They didn't want to have to get somewhere and not be eligible to play right away. And it sounds like it's going to be pretty universal that guys are going to have that ability to do that. So the spring window could be crazy again. And so you want to actually have some flexibility in there, and there's going to naturally be attrition guys that just don't feel great about their staying on the team coming on a spring ball, and that opens up some spots. So it really is nonstop. But I think there's going to be fairly heavy movement in the spring, and it certainly wouldn't surprise me if they bring another defensive lineman in.
Yeah, definitely. I think that movement is definitely coming in the spring with all of these, ripple effects from Nick Saban leaving and retiring, schools being affected, players now open and able to leave, and a bunch of different recruiting and things of that nature going on. And once you get into recruiting, the good, the bad, and the ugly can come out. And we saw Coach Prime talking about this week that there's been recruits and guys that has signed that's coming back, showing him the receipts of coaches speaking, bad about him. They have it recorded. And Coach Prime said, hey, man, when these recruits come into your office and stuff, and nowadays the technology and these phones can be on, you better watch what you say. He said he's had to make some calls and talk to these coaches personally and tell them about this stuff and say, watch your mouth, is what he's basically said. What do you feel about that? I'll bring this question up. Should coaches mention other schools when recruiting? Should that even be a thing?
They shouldn't, and the number reason why is because it's going to backfire more times than not. You mentioned that some of these conversations had been recorded, and we heard Jordan Seaton mentioned that a coach asked him, why are you going to Colorado? You want to be a famous rapper? And that's just disrespectful, and it didn't help you. So why even go down that path? I don't think that tearing down Coach Prime and what he's trying to build at Colorado is going to breed positive results for coaches that want to do that. So, I think that most, even though they're young men that are going through this recruiting process, most of them can cut through the BS, and that's one thing is I kind of give the younger generation, because they've been communicating since a younger age, on their tablets. And I feel like they have a better BS gauge at times. And so it probably just is a dumb idea to begin with. And so that's kind of where I come out on that. But it's got to be frustrating if you're a Colorado coach and you're trying to take the high ground and not give into this, and you're having this stuff said behind your back, because you will have to kind of offset some of that by having conversations with these young men. But I would say knock it off, because I don't think it's going to help you out all that much. What do you think?
Nah, it's definitely not going to help you out. I think it just goes back to even high school, middle school, whatever. When you're trying to get a girlfriend, you don't go to the girl and say, hey, the guy you're dating with, he's over there talking to another girl, or the guy you're dating. Why are you bringing up the guy that she's dating? Go in there with your game. Go with your pitch, and in that way, there's no possibility of backfiring. There's no possibility of the guy finding out, coming trying to, have a phone call with you like Coach Prime had to do with these coaches, and they don't realize that hurts them in the long run, because coaching and opportunities, as I said earlier, is all about relationships. So you're burning bridges and showing your true colors, so to speak, when you're telling these kids, hey, you want to be a rapper? Oh, okay. Anything and anybody in my circle, we're not going to have anything to do with that type of guy and that type of character over there. So whatever bridge is coming over this way that he has to cross, they won't be crossed, dog, unless you're going to have to deal with me. First of all, you're going to have to get this work first of all. And I think that's what Coach Prime is with it. And I don't think that should be tolerated in any case. And any player, like you said, the BS meter is up, and they should see this. And I think any player coming out wouldn't fall for that type of recruiting tactic anyway.
It's kind of a bummer that Oregon's not on Colorado's schedule in the future, isn't it? It'd be right. Fun for Coach Prime and he said everything about Coach Lanning was classy. He didn't have any negative words for him with that, but I think the Colorado fan base has built up a lot of animosity, and I don't know if that's the same coach that was telling Jordan Seaton about possibly wanting to be a famous rapper, but that just came to my mind, and it's too bad that they're not going to get a chance to get that rematch with Lanning up there.
Right, because I know Coach Prime got one in his back pocket where he's saying I owe him. And he some type of way we're gonna see him soon. And you never know, bowl game, playoff game with a 12-team playoff coming up. You have more knowledge on this probably, and probably even more experience with this. How do you feel about the 12-team playoff, and how can it really help and benefit Colorado?
Yeah, I love it, and one of the main arguments against is, well, it takes away from the other bowl games. The honest truth is most people aren't tuning in to most of those bowl games regardless. And the people that are watching them, it's kind of the sports betting industry, which is really helping some of those lower tier bowls. And you can still have it for that reason. I don't think your viewership's really going to struggle. Most of those stadiums don't have very many people in the stands. And so I don't think it takes away a whole lot there. And I do still want to see it limited and never grow beyond 12, though, because then it still kind of keeps the week-to-week meaning in college football. And it's probably not going to feel great when 5 SEC teams get into it, and then you could point to it and say, well, I guess the regular season doesn't matter as much. But for all those teams, it is going to matter. But you're just going to be allowed a little bit more of a slip up now than you would in the past. And I think it just keeps more fan bases and engaged. And with Florida State going undefeated, scheduling 2 SEC non-conference opponents and to not get into the playoff, I mean, that would be the biggest argument right there. Is there shouldn't be a situation like that happening in college football going forward. And I know the 13th ranked team next year is going to be complaining, and you're still going to have those debates, but I think anybody in below 10 is probably going to have a hard time arguing that they should be happy that they were even kind of in the mix.
Right. It won't be anyone at the 13th. We could have been national champs. That somehow you'll get in. If not, then you probably wasn't deserving too. So I think it is a better system, and that way football will determine this, and it'll be very easy to slap a a sponsorship name or a bowl name on each of those playoff games. So that money will still be there to be made. Uh, Before we wind down here, we got a few more things to talk about. You had an article on buffstampede.com, your website, and where you're talking about the new addition to Colorado with Herman Smith III becoming officially a Buff, reuniting with Coach Prime. I'll tell you real quick my thoughts on it, being that I watched him at Jackson State. I saw him coming out of Lincoln High School out in California. I felt like he was a big grab for Jackson State. I think he was a highly ranked, top ranked 3-star. Some sites maybe had him possibly being a 4-star, but he chose to go to Jackson State with Coach Prime. Guy coming from a great family, and he came in. You could see his development at Jackson State as he went on, began to make plays on special teams, and then also, thanks to Well Off Media, we were able to see a lot more than a lot of people would see. He made some plays in that defensive backfield. Then he ended up going to Idaho State. Did well there. I don't have his exact stats, but he played well there also. Now he's deciding to come, and he's at Colorado. That addition there, the camaraderie there, the chemistry there, how do you feel like, and based off your article also, how do you feel like this helps Colorado?
Yeah, just the initial reaction, and I didn't have the chance to cover him the way you did during his time at Jackson State, so it was just trying to research him as much as I could, and his versatility stood out. Not only special teams, he played on 5 of 6 special teams units at both Jackson State and Idaho State. So somebody that is going to be a real valuable piece there, but also versatility in the defensive backfield, a guy that can play different both safety spots. He can play nickelback. Colorado probably has enough depth at cornerback that they're not really going to need him at that spot, but he can play in different spots in there. And so when you're talking about a depth piece you're going to bring in to compete and to be a big part of your special teams, you like that he could kind of factor in at different spots. And so, and then obviously him being at Jackson State, you go, well, Coach Prime had that experience and he values this guy and wants to bring him into his locker room. So you would assume, as you confirmed, kind of the character piece checks out there as well. So not every guy you add to a recruiting class is going to be Travis Hunter. You need guys that are going to play different roles on your football team. And that was the thing that stood out to me about him is Herman Smith, the third, is that he's going to be playing a lot of different roles in this team in 2024.
Yeah, I, like you said, a depth piece, but also a very versatile guy at the safety spot. Can play both safety positions and come up and hit like a linebacker. Good tackler in space, and improved as he went on Jackson State and at Idaho State as a pass coverage guy. So I like the piece a lot. I was hoping he would go straight to Colorado from Jackson State, but he ended up going to Idaho State, like I said. And so now he's back, and I think this is a great addition for Colorado, whether it's a walk-on or a scholarship spot. A great addition for Colorado and Coach Prime. Let's
Definitely.
see. Are we? I guess we can address the elephant in the room for this week before we go on to spring football. Ended up there. The elephant in the room for this week, I guess the top story for the week was that Shilo and Shedeur wasn't at the official first meeting. They were in Paris on a runway for Louis Vuitton and the launch of, I think it was Pharrell Williams' Louis Vuitton collaboration out in Paris, France. And just, you saw the internet going crazy. They should be in Colorado. How are you going to miss the first meeting? Everybody has in their opinion on it. And now they're back, and it's like they never missed anything. And they're practicing, and I guess people forgot about them being there now. So what's the deal? Was that a big deal for them being there? What's the significance of them being there? Just talk about the whole scenario. What do you feel about it?
Well, I understand why people would have the reaction of, you have to be at that meeting. You can't skip that. But to me, covering Colorado, it lacks perspective in the sense that Coach Prime doesn't do the same, operate the exact same way as the 130 other FBS head coaches. And that's part of the reason that guys want to play for him, is that when they have an opportunity to take advantage of the spotlight, he's willing to do that. And then, somebody will mention the fact that, well, it's because of their last name. And it's like, well, yeah, because Shedeur Sanders, I think, was their second best graded defensive player by Pro Football Focus last year. Shedeur Sanders was among the best, most accurate quarterbacks in the country. And by all accounts, they're hardworking guys. So I'm having a hard time following along with the criticism as you kind of delve deeper into it. And it just, I don't know. I think as a Colorado fan, it doesn't bother me, because I mentioned this before. A year and a half ago, people wouldn't wear their CU stuff. Now it's kind of a fashion statement to wear CU stuff now. And,
right.
The exposure in getting out in front of people that aren't your typical college football fan grows your brand. We've seen what it's done for the local economy, and that stuff matters. And I don't quite understand all that stuff as a 44-year-old guy, but like, I also understand what my kids are into. And I thought it was a cool experience for them to go through. Had they been gone much longer, then maybe you start to question a little bit. But I look at it the perspective of where Colorado was when Coach Prime got here. And even though they went 4-8 last year, I don't think there's another person on this planet that could have gotten the amount of excitement that Coach Prime's built in these last 13, 14 months. And so why are you going to get up in arms about two guys taking advantage of a really cool opportunity and something in fashion that they have a strong interest in? To me, if you want to criticize it, it's fine. But some people were acting like it was the end of the world. In that part of it, I didn't get.
Yeah, you hit it. If you want to criticize it, it's fine. That's up to you. Do your thing. But I would say this, as being part of a team, I think I live by this right here. Everybody gets treated fairly, but everybody doesn't get treated the same. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because I had him on yesterday. We did an interview with Roddy White and my quarterback, Daryl Hackney. If you come to tell me that Daryl Hackney was treated the same as everybody else on the football team, then you crazy. If I treated my little league quarterback the same that I treated everybody on my on my little league football team, then you're crazy. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen anywhere. Any good, successful team and coach, you treat everybody fairly, but you don't treat everybody the same, because even with your kids, dog, just think about it, So I would say whoever criticized, let them criticize it. But I understand what Coach Prime allowed them to do. I understand, like you said, growing that brand internationally, and it being now indirectly with them being there, globally recognized, just by them being there in that fashion show. It helps them out. More eyeballs. It helps with even more. People don't feel like it, but it helps with recruiting. The more people see you, the more it helps with recruiting. Quick example. One guy said, how is Coach Prime being on Good Morning America helping with recruiting? I said, He said, no 16-year-old is watching that. I said, you're correct. Maybe no 16-year-old is watching it. But guess who is watching it? The parents of that 16-year-old.
Prime parents. There's the plug.
Shout out to Prime Parents. Yeah, watch Prime Parents. Hit the link below. But definitely, the parents are watching it, and those are the people who help make those decisions for those kids. And it's not just recruiting kids, you're recruiting families nowadays, right?
Yeah, no question. I think part of it comes down to it's just different than the norm. And so people have a hard time just taking a second, taking a step back and kind of looking at all sides of a situation. It's like, you just want to, well, that's just not how it's done. And it's like, well, okay, why is it not done? And why is it done in this case? And so, yeah, that's the part that I was driving around running errands a couple times with local sports talk radio, and that was the topic on all the stations. And it's like, really, there's nothing better to talk about on the radio out here. And that now sounds hypocritical because we're talking about it on the podcast, but I feel like we're having to talk about it more as a reaction to other people's outrage, which it's fine. Like you said, it's their opinion, and it seems a little over the top in terms of their reaction.
Yeah, a little over the top. They're going to want to find any and everything to try to criticize Coach Prime for anyway. You said they couldn't do this, and now you're allowing them to do uh-oh. Come on, man. These guys in Paris doing their thing, and I liked it. I love the opportunity. I love the look, and I like what it brings, to Colorado, to the whole situation, and Coach Prime and what he's doing. I think more opportunities like this are to come, and these guys. Even Coach Prime said, you want to get paid like pros, but you don't want to get treated like pros. You got come on, dog. You got to take your pick. You know what I mean? You can't have both of them. So shout out to them for doing that. And I think that was a great opportunity for them. And they're back at it like they never left right now. So, all right, final topic I guess we can discuss is two things most excited about this spring for you? I guess I can start this one off and you'll finish it off for us. But I'll say that two things I'm most excited about will be to see that new offensive line take hold and form together and protect Shedeur Sanders. Shout out to DT2. As Mama Benson said, don't touch two. That's what they're forming, and I like that. You got to have to form some type of bond to come together and work together as an offensive line on a football team, because I think that's the most cohesive unit. It has to be the most cohesive unit on a football team to work together to protect the quarterback and open those run lanes. So I'm excited to see the offensive line work together, all the new guys come together, and how they're going to, I guess, just fall into place. Who's going to take that lead? Who's going to be that big dog amongst the dogs out there on the football field? Will Tyler Brown be that center? Will Jordan Seaton, and will these other guys step up and play the role? So I'm excited about the offensive line. And I guess I'm excited about the defensive line too, because I'm a trenches guy, like I said before. I want to see those two go at it and battle. And will Coach Sapp be there? Will he be there to coach Chidozie Nwankwo, Anquin Barnes, Amari McNeil, Shane Cokes, and those guys? Will he be there? I'm excited to see that. And I'm excited about possibly even being there this spring. We'll talk about that later on, though. So two things you're excited about.
Well, if we get a chance to go in and watch any of spring ball, you got to just start with Travis Hunter, from the simple fact that our opportunities of watching him play in a Colorado uniform are pretty limited. And Shedeur Sanders is along the same lines, but we just haven't seen a two-way guy like this in college football. And unfortunately, because of the injury, it didn't feel like the momentum nationally in terms of the eyeballs on him obviously slowed down as last season went. But it's crazy to say this. His potential is even greater than what he did this past season. And there were actually, a couple calls that went against him that looked like they should have been touchdowns. There were a couple plays where he probably makes, even though it's a really, really challenging play, but didn't quite come up with it. And so as long as he's in Colorado, I think, and I get a chance to watch any practices, that's the thing I'm most excited about. But sticking with another skill guy, Alton McCaskill IV. I'm excited to is this the running back we see on film at Houston his freshman year? Because that was pretty special stuff.
Right.
And it just felt like maybe, and this is what the coaches seem to think, is that there's just kind of a hurdle that you need to dial it back before you rev it back up. But it seemed like it was going to be full go this spring. And so that is another thing I'm really looking forward to. And then defensively, I would imagine either of us don't have to get asked the question anymore who this team's defensive coordinator is. You'd think by then that they'll have somebody in charge. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Last thing, you know what? And go back real quick. Alton McCaskill, I'm definitely excited about him. And that leads me into our final thing. I thought this is our final thing right here. And that's going to lead me into it. The keys for Shedeur Sanders to win that Heisman Trophy. And I think it goes back to that running game, to Alton McCaskill, to that offensive line to protect him. But main thing is to open up that run game. If he has a run game, that's going to lead to, he's going to do his thing. But if he has a run game, I think that's going to lead to victories for us. With victories come those Heisman Trophy winners. He's going to have the numbers. He's going to do that. With the run game, the wins will come. That's my key for Shedeur Sanders to win the Heisman Trophy is Alton McCaskey on that run game. And I say Alton, it could be anybody back there, but I think he's going to be that guy, that difference maker. If he could be, like you said, the guy on film that we saw at Houston, run for those double-digit touchdowns, pick up those blitzes, be an explosive guy that nobody wants to hit, has that confidence when running, not worried about the knee. If he can do that and the offensive line can protect, Shedeur Sanders is a shoe-in for the Heisman Trophy. One person has something to say about that, and he wears number 12 on both sides of the ball, though.
Yeah, I like it. There were a lot of issues with the protection last year, but to your point, when other teams knew that Colorado just had no threat on the ground, it's so hard to block guys that just have their ears pinned back. And so yeah, that's a great point. I was going to cheat and go left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle in terms of the keys for Shedeur Sanders, as well as protection from the skill guys. But no, it really comes down to balance, and it comes down to protection, because I don't think there's any question when you look at the guys that they brought into an already solid receivers room, LeJohntay Wester and Will Shepherd and Terrell Timmons Jr. And I have no questions about that group providing Shedeur with a ton of weapons, and Medair at tight end. I think they've got the pieces in terms of the pass catching talent that I don't even worry about that. It's the protection, and to your point, like you said, the kind of the balanced attack to be able to keep defenses honest.
Yes, indeed, and I'm 100% with that. I believe that the receivers are going to be there, but one more key: offensive coordinator, because all those guys can be there making those plays and ready for action, but the offensive coordinator has to set the tone, call the plays, and be balanced and not be predictable in the play calling to where it gives the offense a chance to do their thing. So I guess we could, that'll be the final thing we'll wrap it up on. I want to say thank you for coming on and coming together and doing this. This is not me interviewing Adam, guys. This is us doing this show together. This is new BuffEmUpdates with Adam and Chico. Adam, your last words. You want to say anything?
Well, that was a lot of fun, and hopefully we can keep this thing growing and get more, fan participation out there as we go forward, because there's going to be so much to talk about in the coming months. Before you know it, we'll be in spring ball and we'll be talking about practices. So really enjoy getting your background as well, Chico. And again, I'm going to tell everybody they got to get into the Prime Parent series. That's a lot of fun.
Oh man, I appreciate that plug. Thank you very much. That's what I want real quick. I wanted to bring that up so that I wanted to bring that show about and create that so that we can have a different insight and perspective on these players that's coming in. A lot of people are watching them on Well Off and other Reach the People Media and the pregame show and other networks and stuff, but they really like, who is that guy? Where does he come from? And well, the parents will tell you exactly what you want to know, and then you can listen to them and, oh, I understand. Oh, that's like my mom. Oh, that's like my auntie. And I have a vested interest. I like this kid now. I want to buy his jersey now. And hopefully, after coming on Prime Parents, and I put their link there, their jersey sale increases. They get some NIL money in their pocket. It helps out the player. Hopefully it helps out the fan to learn the player. Hopefully it helps out Coach Prime and them with recruiting, at the end of the day, to get better players in there and more success for Coach in Colorado. So that's what I'm doing it for. And we're coming together to do this BuffEmUpdates to do the same thing in essence. And I appreciate you even doing, open to do this with me. And I look forward to doing it even more in the future. Each and every week, we're looking to come on at least with the things and summarize all the topics for the week in Colorado Buff football and Coach Prime news. So, having said that, I'm BiggDogg Chico. This is my man Adam. What's your nickname? Tell me your nickname, Adam.
My nickname is the CheeseCat, and you just got to look at my last name because I tell people that have a hard time pronunciating my last name. It's like the cheese and the big cat, and that stuck with me growing up. I don't even really like cats, but it's the nickname.
Munsterteiger, right? Or
Munsterteiger.
Munsterteiger. That's German, no?
Yep.
Oh, I got it right. I used to live in Austria. Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you guys for joining in. Everybody out there, I appreciate you. We have more to come. This is BuffEmUpdates with Adam and Chico. We're going to be up and about this thing. Peace and melodies. Yeah.